Hello viewers, good afternoon. How are you today? Today is a very, very unique session. It's a masterclass if you want to call it one. And I really think you should call it a masterclass because we are joined by one of the very best in the industry on making sales to happen. So the question or the conversation we are going to be having today is how to increase sales and make customers come again and again. And in this session, we are going to be talking about customer acquisition. We're going to be talking about how to make sales happen. A number of entrepreneurs are struggling with their sales, and this is just the right session for you. And today I am joined by Mr. Louis Ekome. I call him one of the very best in the industry because he's trained at the top level, and he continues to do that. He's the regional manager, diagnostics, 54 Gen, and he's also a seasoned seller. Am I permitted to use so we've been privileged to work together, and he's an award-winning faculty member teaching entrepreneurs how to make sales to happen. And off the screen, I've told him that this masterclass is actually for me, and I know it's for you as well. It's for all of us because we want to understand how this whole thing works. What's the magic behind making sales to happen? And if there is anything like that, can customers come over and over? Is it possible for one to build a system where it's now your customers that are coming over and over? So I want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us today, and we're privileged to have you. And what's that one secret? Is there something like that? How do you make sales happen whereby customers come again and again, and it's like an automated system? Is it possible?
Thank you, Tayo. So, well, I guess you can say it's possible, but the trick is you just have to find out what works for you. So it's like you find out your own magic.
Okay.
So it's not a one-size-fit-all. So you just need to find your own magic. And yes, it could be possible.
So I know our viewers are also eager to now understand how can we find our magic in all of these things? How can we make it possible? So for instance, recently I was engaged by an entrepreneur that complained that, look, sales are not happening. How do I cope? And there was another entrepreneur who I was informed had to cut down on the number of employees within his business because he felt that, look, sales is a lifeline of this thing that I'm doing. How can I make payments when I am not making revenue? So what's the trick in all of these things? It's the meat of the conversation.
So I think, so in the conversation that we're just having, we talked about a couple of things. So for example, you said the person was not making sales, and which is, revenue essentially, was not coming in. So the question would be, how do you increase your revenue? So you can look at it this way, you can increase your revenue, or increase your sales, increase your turnover when you have, so the assumption here is that you have a business that sells something. So when you have maybe more customers coming in, so let's say this month, for example, you have maybe 10 customers, and the next month, you have 12 customers, and then you get to 15 customers. So that is one way. So you have new customers coming in. You can also grow where you have your existing customers, buy more than one item. So for example, you have these 10 customers, they come in, and maybe when this one comes in, usually buys item A, this one comes in, buys item B. So when you have the first customer come in, who usually buys item A, and then you tell him, by the way, we also have item B, which you might like. We also have item C and item D. So when you have those customers also buying more items, of what you have, right? So that way you can actually increase, your turnover. And I think that for a lot of us, especially I think for those in the service industry, when you sell tangible products, so if for example, let's say you have a supermarket, right, and you are saying, customers, maybe we need to, you think about it in terms of, so if your revenue is dropping, you can be looking at it and say, okay, customers are not coming, or what item should we be stocking, to make people, come and, to buy more because that item moves, So also, even when we're in the service industry, I think that what we can also look at is to do more like a flip, kind of. And we look at our services, you design them like products. Okay. I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
So if you can have, one kind of service, so depending on what you do. So you can look at it, as, it's one product, So let's say, if you don't mind, we can use the law firm,
I'm learning.
So we can use, so if, for example, you do maybe lots of litigations, so that litigation in itself, you can look at it as one product, all right? So if you have more people coming in for litigations, yes, all well and good, and yes, it might be giving certain revenue, but the question is, can you actually do more than just litigations only? So if you decide to add something else, to that, maybe company registrations, for example, and all the legal framework, to set up organizations or things like that, and so that becomes another product, in that sense. And then you think about another kind of service, that becomes another product. So you can actually increase, your product line. So when you have people coming in, your customers, yes, so they can buy more than one product. And then, yes, you can now have maybe more customers, coming in also. So that way, you can possibly have your revenue increasing.
This is very eye-opening because it reminds me of things I see even in supermarkets.
Absolutely.
Where, okay, so you've moved around, you've picked everything, then you get to that spot where you want to make payments. You still see the lady at the counter is displaying sweets, when you say you do not have change, they say, okay, just pick sweets. Yes. And even with or without the change. Yes. Those things get enticing and you're like, okay, don't worry. Or maybe God helps, you're with your child at that time. And then the child says, oh, mommy, daddy, I want this. And you're like, oh, again.